Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is CF Claire. For those of you who don't know, I'm working on a Fae Dragon romance novel. Last week I'd been doing a bunch of world building stuff, and this week I am taking a look at what I had for my second draft of my outline, and I'm going to be analyzing it and sort of organizing all of the questions, the world questions that I still had when I was making it. I'm a super outliner. The outline that I have right now is on a scene level, sectioned out by chapter and broken down from scene and sequel and all this stuff. I finished the second draft of that super detailed outline like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago at this point, and I'm feeling ready to take a look at what I had. I've done this for the last couple of projects where usually what I'm looking at is the first draft of a story, and I'll take a look at it on a chapter by chapter level and be like, I liked this about the chapter, but here are some opportunities, things to change or alter or blah, blah, blah. And then also looking at it from a sequence level, what worked about this sequence, and on a quarter level, what worked about this quarter, what kind of opportunities do we have to change things about this. And I really like working like this. I know that it's a little too much for most people, a lot of people probably. I am what I would consider a highly methodological plotter, which is a term that I got from Ellen Brock, who also does YouTube videos. She is an editor for her day job, and she's got a lot of great stuff. And she talks about the writer continuum, where a lot of people fall either on the methodological to intuitive scale and the plotter to pantser scale. So I'm a methodological plotter for sure, and that's why I like doing this kind of thing. But anyways, that's what we're doing this week. We're not going to be able to get that far because it's a 4-day work week for me. Yesterday was a holiday, Indigenous Peoples Day. It is October 14th today. So we're just going till Friday because on the weekend, I don't schedule stuff. I take the break and do family things with my family. I've got my outline here, and I'm going to sit down and have a breakfast salad and start working on that. It is 9:15 in the morning. I just dropped the kids off, got home, made a salad, and here we are. We're going to jump into it. I did the first chapter analysis last night, and in the car while waiting in the drop-off line, I started working on the second chapter. I'm getting continually more excited to write this and more happy that I have not yet written anything for the book, because every iteration of this detailed outline, I am getting so much closer to a story that I'm really excited about. And if I had written the first draft of the book based off of the first draft of the outline that I had, I would have had it would have been basically a rewrite. And very similarly, second draft that I wrote, if I had written a prose first draft based off of that, I would have had major things to rewrite. So I am really hopeful that by the end of this third draft of the outline, I will have a much better idea of things. And I think the other books in the series won't quite take this many detailed scene level outlines, because as in the process of this, I'm getting so much information and ideas for what I want to do with their stories that I think it'll be a lot more formed by the time we get to the detailed outline. So we'll see. I've been wrong before. This is the first book in an interconnected standalone series, romance series, that is heavily fantasy flavored sci-fi with all fantasy races, no humans, and just really a lot of fun. When I sat down on Sunday to plan out what I thought I was going to work on this week, I thought I was going to work on my map for the other side of the rift in space, because this universe is essentially two separate galaxies connected by this magical rift, and there are ways that you get transported from one side to the other. It's really mostly one way, though. You go from one side to the other side, and then you just stuck there. And so I had last week worked on my map of the Wild West side of the rift, which is what I'm calling it, where everyone gets stuck if they accidentally get sent through this rift somehow. But I wasn't excited about that. I will have to do it at some point, and I will get excited about it. So it doesn't make sense to really just do that right now, when actually what I'm really excited about is taking a look at this analysis stuff that has to happen anyways. So I'm not actually making any changes right now. I am just typing up and consolidating all of my questions and differences of what I had written in that second draft of the outline to what I now know by the end of, 3 weeks later of really thinking about this world and fleshing it out. And there's a lot that I know now that I didn't know then. So we'll see how fast we can do it. The idea is to do this analysis and then possibly switch over to my B project if I need a break from this particular one. Or if not, then just work on more of the literal larger world building and fleshing that out and figuring out the answers to all the questions that I'm consolidating from going through this. And then probably closer to end of November, actually looking at the analysis I make now and going through and on a scene level changing that outline. Because hopefully in Q1 of 2026, I'm going to just bang out the first draft of this, and it will be fun and awesome and a good time. So anyways, here we go. Let's get started. I just finished chapter 3. I'm feeling really, really good about these changes. This book is 63 chapters and an epilogue. The way that I remember it, I had this revelation of something I wanted to do with a love interest and his backstory and who he is by chapter 20 of this second draft that I'm looking at right now. So I'm hoping that the last 43 chapters in the epilogue go a little bit smoother because I had that shift already in mind, and that's one of the largest differences of this draft from the first draft of the story. But these first 20 chapters, I hadn't come up with that revelation yet. So there's quite a bit of, it's not that I'm getting rid of the scenes for these chapters, but the context and the tone of them is completely different. For instance, these first 20 chapters really had more of a romantic comedy feel to them. And it's not like that, I like that, but it's actually a much more serious thing because of this shift that happened and these other things that I figured out about what I want there, the history and dynamic between dragons and fae to be. So it's much, much more enemies to lovers because of historical context as well as personality, rather than what I'm looking at right now is much more circumstantial because of what happened on that day in that place. I'm loving the changes that I'm making, but there are quite a lot more changes than I was hoping there would be. Because I'd like to just, breeze through it and make my analysis. But that's fine. That's just not the way it is. I'm trying to make sure that I ask as many questions as possible and put that into my analysis so that I can have very easily, what do I need to be thinking about in the back of my mind when I'm coming back and actually changing things? Because I'm not changing anything on the outline at the moment. I am just making an analysis. So I'm asking things like, how would the love interest ask for help? Why does he respect this character in his life and want their opinion on this situation? And I have a section in my analysis where I just kind of go over briefly my thoughts overall on the chapter. And in that, I'm trying to add in what's the value shift that's happening from the beginning of the chapter to the end, as well as what is the question that the chapter asks and what is the answer that the chapter gives to that question. Which the value shift thing, I'm reading 2 books simultaneously, and I believe that the value shift is talked about in Story by Robert McKee, and I'm not very far in. I think I'm 30 pages in or something like that, but I really like that. It's a concept I've seen talked about a lot in videos people make on script writing, and I see it far less frequently in novel writing. And I've really struggled to understand, what the hell do you mean, the value shift? People talk about it in terms of positive and negative, and I have not figured it out. But I'm thinking of it in terms of value shift rather than positive or negative. And what does that mean? My understanding and the way that I am using it at the moment is at the beginning of the scene, where's the character in relation to what they are trying to accomplish? So in chapter 3, for instance, the value shift that I want to be focused on as the primary thing that chapter 3 is doing is accomplishing this shift in the love interest acting from a tactical, in the moment thinking of how to deal with the protagonist and the problem that she brings up for him. At the moment, he's thinking of it in terms of tactically, how do I win this battle against this opponent for today? And I need him to shift and at the end of the chapter think strategically about how do I act now in the moment in order to achieve the actual long-term goal that I'm trying to have. So this scene is supposed to facilitate that shift in value from tactical thought to strategic thought. Does that make sense? I don't know. And I want to be done reading this. I'm enjoying reading it, but I'd like to already have this knowledge, and then be speaking from a place of like, I fully understand what I'm talking about. But anyways, I don't necessarily, but it's feeling really good to start having that in my analysis of these chapters. I'm going to use that for all the other ones too. And I'm also trying to get clear on what is the question that the chapter is asking. For instance, for chapter 3, the question I want the chapter to ask, this is the first chapter in the love interest point of view, is who is he and why does he want to know how she got here on this goblin plane? The chapter needs to ask, why is this so important that readers should go along and believe that he would do all this stuff just to figure it out? And then in this chapter, we only get a partial answer to that because that plays into kind of the whole first part of the book. But the partial answer is that he's someone very important or influential, and he wants to go through the rift back to the side of the galaxy where all of the major home planets are. That's the question answer that this chapter is having. And then we have the value shift of what he's going to do in this situation. So anyways, that's what I'm trying to do. I hope that made any sense. I'm finding it particularly helpful. I'm looking at chapter 4 and I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot changing about this chapter. No. So that's going to require a lot of brain work, but it will be so much better. So it's fine. I'm walking at the moment too. I've been trying to walk 2 miles every day if possible on, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a standing desk and a treadmill situation. I think I walked about 1.5 miles so far. I paused it before I looked at it. I'm feeling some resistance though in starting chapter 4. I've done 3.5 time blocks of work so far today. So I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break and do something else for like 15 minutes and then come back and hopefully be a little bit recharged. It's 12:21. I'm trying to get back to focus. I don't know what's going on. Like I want to do this, but I'm also I'm intimidated, but I shouldn't be because I'm not actually changing anything, right? So like calm down. I'm just reading and then being like, hey, this is not great. So I need to chill out. But I'm looking at chapter 4 and I'm like, oh, impossible, too hard, can't do it. And also, I was hoping to do my little notes on chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7 today. So I don't know. Let's just do it. I need a reward. So if when I finish chapter 4, I can have a Three Musketeers bar, one of the little fun size ones, I'm gonna be super happy when I get out of the first sequence because this is too much. Too many notes, too many questions of like, what's fucking going on here? This is ridiculous. I just finished chapter 5. Things are going well. Technically, I was hoping to do 2 more chapters, but I actually have to leave to get the kids in like 20 minutes or so. There is enough time to do 2 more task blocks, which each chapter seems to be taking about a task block. So it's possible. To be honest, this value shift idea is really helpful for really focusing on, yeah, there's a big change that happens. For instance, this chapter, I kind of did it for chapter rather than scene for some of them. Some chapters are like one scene, and some chapters are more a scene and a sequel. From the beginning of this chapter, she goes from being powerless to powerful. So at the beginning, he has what she wants, and at the end of the chapter, she has what he wants. So that's pretty fun. And it is helpful to just be like, here's what I had for the chapter, and let's shoot all these holes in it of what happens about this. Did they do that? How much of this did they talk about? And really just clarify a lot of stuff. There was some vlog where I was like, hopefully by this point I'll have a pitch to give you guys about what this book is about. And I have it, or like a working one, you know. So the main series comp is Crescent Cole's Immortals After Dark, but like in space, and it's adventure stories, even though their core of it is romance driven. When the Fae captain of a research crew becomes the unwilling recipient of a powerful magical artifact, she must find a way to destroy it before it drags her back into the heart of the very Fae politics that she fled from. Unfortunately, the only person who might be able to help her destroy it is a deeply prejudiced and unpleasant shifter who despises her. And even worse, he's her fated mate. And everyone knows that Fae don't get happy endings. What we know from the blurb is that he's a dragon shifter, and what she does not know is that he is a dragon shifter. She just knows he's a shifter. And that's a problem because Fae and dragons don't get along very well in this world. And I figured out how old they are. That will be part of the vlog that comes out the week before this. I had been doing a bunch of work. I came up with some stuff. I'm feeling really good about it. So I came up with how old they are and how long they lived on the planets that they were born on and how long they've been on this Wild West side of the rift that the story begins on. Both of them have lived on this rift side for more time than they have ever lived on their planet. I think that's a big deal, right? Like that changes you. The protagonist has been the captain of this researching crew, the captain of a ship for 30 years. That's a long time. They're immortal, though. It's one of those books, like, they are particularly long lived. And he has been in his position for 80 years. That's a long time. That's a lifetime. And it has worn on him. One of the dynamics I like about this couple, so first of all, he's an Aries with a Scorpio moon, and she's a Virgo with a Capricorn moon. So right away, you've got very different personalities. And he's he will be very outgoing, playful, teasing. And she is very serious. She's a serious little thing with a lot of idealism who has been burned very badly and really just wants to do the right thing all the time. They're so cute. It's not necessarily Grumpy Sunshine. It probably would be smart to play that up more, but it's more Fire Earth. Serious teasing. It's the 15th. I just got back from dropping off the kids and I was working on my chapter 9 analysis. And there's this one, okay, it's going well. Let me start off by saying that. I got up early this morning. I analyzed chapter 8. That went really well. Chapter 9 I was doing in the car. I'm almost done with it. And there's this one huge thing in the book that even though I'm I'm done with the second draft of this detailed outline, like I still don't know what the hell this thing is. So, and I'll just I'm not going to tell you exactly what I figured out about it, but I had a breakthrough while waiting in the drop-off line. So this is a Fae Dragon romance, and I really wanted to use the Wild Hunt as a plot device. And so I did. However, I didn't know exactly what I wanted the Wild Hunt to be in this universe because I didn't know enough about it. I just knew I wanted it to be one of the factors that makes the characters make certain decisions. So that's why I've been able to get away with not knowing exactly what it is and why it happens and what it means all the way through to this point. And that was one of the biggest things that I needed to figure out before actually writing the story. Oh my god. Everything hinges around the fact that this wild hunt is about to start. So what does that mean? And I think I figured out what I want it to mean. So that's extremely exciting and just kind of a funny thing to happen in the drop-off line. I'm gonna have some spaghetti breakfast and just get in there. So secretly, what I want today is to analyze the last chapter of the first sequence, which would be chapter 9. So I would like to finish doing that and also analyze all of the chapters in sequence 2, which is 10 chapters. And here's why that's not insane, and here's why it is insane. It's not insane because I was looking through what I have here, and actually there's not as much to be like, okay, plot hole, let me give this some thought, which is what was happening in the first sequence. There's a lot of stuff I had to figure out. The second sequence, I think, would go faster. The reason that is crazy is that yesterday I had enough time to do 7 chapters. So why would I think that I have enough time and mental energy to do 12 chapters? I mean, that's literally crazy. But we're gonna see what happens. I've been listening to a lot of videos from Plot Genie, Heather from Plot Genie. I'll link her down below. And I love listening to her talk because I'm like, that's what I'm doing right now. Oh my God. Because she does a lot of talking about like how to set up a binge-worthy series and all this stuff. I'm like, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm literally doing right now as I'm going through this. And here are the tropes that I want to use. And then in the next book, this is going to be the trope. And then blah, 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 blah. So it's really fun. And it's validating a lot of my sort of like behind the scenes thinking about all of this stuff and how in depth I'm getting with a lot of this stuff, because what I'd really like to do in my career as a Kindle Unlimited author is I would really like my books to not just be binge worthy, like you want to just read the next one, but to be rereadable and to have enough there to bring readers on such a satisfying emotional journey with the characters that anytime they're feeling in the future, after reading it, anytime they're feeling like, "Oh, all I want is to just have that, reading experience of going from this to this." And I know that that book, Project Goblin, whatever, is going to deliver that. So I actually want to read it again. That's some of what is going on behind some of the decision making that I'm doing. Like, what is the reader experience that I want my readers to have? What are the books that I reread again and again, even though I know the story and all this stuff, but the writing does such a good job of taking you on that journey that anytime I want to go on that journey, I'm like, that's the book I want. So, because there are books I've read, 10 times. So anyways, I'm going to get off the camera and start working on stuff, but it's all really fun. The actual stupidest thing about Google Docs is that I checked literally this morning if my file with all of my stuff was still marked for being available offline. Not that I ever take it off being available offline, but it kicks me off all the time. And it was like, no, I am still available offline. Hi. And I used my computer when I was dropping off kids. Now I'm here waiting to pick up the kids a couple hours later, and it's like, hey, you wanna make it available offline because it's not right now. It's just like, why does this happen? Why does this happen? Here I am ready to do some work for another like 40 minutes. And it decided it's not available. And my phone doesn't have service. It's not like I can work on my phone. God damn it. It is August. It's October 16th. And it is 8:52. I literally just dropped off the kids and I drove to the local track because it's a beautiful day. And I had gotten up early this morning and I did analyze one of the chapters that I was going to work on today. And I mostly analyzed another chapter while waiting the drop-off line. I want to finish analyzing that chapter and also analyze one more chapter here at the track before going home, because something about being in the car right now is really helpful to get me to focus. So we're gonna do that and go from there. That went pretty well. I just got back. It's about 10 o'clock. We're warming up some lentil soup. So I just finished chapter 16. That's what I had wanted to do when I was at the track. And yeah, we're gonna break. We're gonna do some food. And there are 3 more chapters that I want to do today, as well as the overall, how do I feel like the second sequence is, and what needs to get changed. But it's coming together really well, and we're moving into the parts of the book where I had figured things had started really clicking. So I'm really hoping that it starts going a little faster. Not that it's going slow. I'm doing a lot because I have a lot of time that I can dedicate to this, but I'm hoping we're moving into the chapters where I could do like 2 chapters worth of analysis in one time block instead of a time block and a half for each one. And I have, okay, so what I want to be doing is not something that's on my Kanban board. And so it's going to be a reward to myself if slash when I finish doing what I had planned to do today. Then I get to, as a reward, work on a graphic in Canva. I've been watching a lot of videos from Heather from Plot Genie, and I really, really like all the stuff she talks about, and it's making me want to give a little bit more thought to what the overall mini-series plot line is for the first 5 books in this series, because there is, kind of. And I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but I think it would be helpful to just be like, okay, here's all 5 of the books in this one graphic. Here are the main characters, what their misbeliefs are, what their signs are, because I like using astrology to determine personality and stuff like that. A lot of people like to use Enneagram and stuff like that, and I just prefer astrology. To have what's sort of like the main theme of each of the books in the series, and then in each book, what do we learn that establishes that plot through line for the whole first miniseries, so that we are getting a little bit of information for each one. So I think that would be really fun to work on. But that's my reward. I just finished chapter 18. I'm really liking how things are coming together. I know I said I wasn't actually changing anything, and that I was just asking questions and being like, plot hole, what about this plot hole? And that is mostly the case, but I am finding that as I'm asking questions about like, why isn't this happening? Or what's the reason that they're doing this? I'm also just coming up with a couple possible answers. And sometimes one of them is one that I'm like, I think this is the answer. So let's just write that down. And pretty often what's happening is I'll just figure out what I want the actual new scene to be. So even though I'm writing out my analysis, it's like mixed with, by the way, here's the new scene. So I feel like I kind of am analyzing at the same time as rewriting at the moment. So I don't know, that's fun. I really like how the beginning is coming together, and I'm really excited to see if I still feel really good about the later parts of the book too, because I love how everything was getting tied up by the end. So we'll find out. But I need to take a break. It is almost 11:30, and I just need to do something else for a little while. Technically, I had the idea that I was going to make bread today. I don't know. I'm feeling a lot of resistance towards making bread. Usually, so for a very long time, we've been making bread very consistently and not buying bread from the store. And we fell out of that habit during the summer because the summer was hot and terrible. At this point, we've been eating store bread for the past couple weeks, and it just doesn't. I mean, if you've made your own bread for a while and you get used to the taste of like real bread, and then you're eating store bread, like it's not good. I feel like I can literally taste the chemicals, and it's just, but I'm not very good at making bread. It always underproofs or overproofs or something, and the top just totally, it all drips down the sides, and I'm like, how am I so this bad at making bread when I make bread sometimes? And I've obviously done no research into it to figure out what I'm doing. But so anyways, I have resistance towards it. Let's find out if I make it or not. On a different note though, on my Kanban board, you'll notice I have some of the purple stuff moved down. The purple stuff is Project Demon. That's the second book in this interconnected series. So my goal for this quarter as far as Project Demon goes is to basically just do like the story component stuff and get a very, very rough situation style chapter outline, which I had already basically done the first 10 chapters just like on the weekend a while ago. And I just hadn't moved the things down. So that's really fun. There's a great feeling of momentum that comes from having a Kanban board and like moving stuff down. Wow. As soon as I moved stuff down, I was like, I bet I could do some more work on that. And it sort of feels like a luxury to be able to work on that because it's my B project and it's so much easier. At this point, I've been thinking about it for almost as long as I've been thinking about Project Goblin. By thinking so much about Project Goblin, I've figured out so much about the world and everything that it's kind of just like a lot easier to work on Project Demon, where a lot of the big problems that I had with Project Goblin just like don't exist. with the other book, so it's just easy. Plus, all I need to figure out is the situation that I want to happen within each chapter, which is way easier than what's the scene format and what is the sequel and what blah blah blah. So it's very luxurious. But anyways, I gotta go do something else. Here we go. It's almost 1 o'clock. I'm printing out my analysis pages that I was just working on. I finished the 19th chapter, so that's all the chapters of the second sequence. It's the first quarter of the books. I'm loving it. It is. This is gonna be such. I love this story. I love this story. The last thing that I had scheduled that I really want to do today before I get my reward is that I really want to look at okay, so second sequence as a whole. How do I feel about it? Strengths, weaknesses, and kind of consolidate the stuff from all the chapters that I was just working on. So I want to be able to flip through them instead of like scrolling through 18 pages on my computer. So I'm printing that stuff out so I can flip through it. We're going to make this sequence 2 analysis. And then I'm going to look at my page that I had my sequence 1 analysis on and kind of compare those two and be like, okay, how do I feel about the first quarter of the book overall? And then I got to do my reward of working on a fun Canva graphic to keep better track of like what are the tropes for each of the books and blah blah blah, all the stuff that I told you before. But we're having a great time. I love this story so much. Oh my gosh, as I'm going through these earlier scenes, I'm like, okay, that was a little bit weak. But as I'm like asking the questions of like how can we make this better? Does this make any sense? I'm picturing in my head how it could be instead, and I'm like, oh my god, what if he does this and then she does that and then blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh my god, this was. I want to read this right now. So that's really fun. If me from August, when I was like, I don't know what I even want to do with these characters, oh my god, am I ever going to figure it out? If me from August knew what I know now about this story, ooh, I would have been feeling a lot better. But anyways, whatever. Good morning. It's the 17th. It is 9:40 right now. And we're feeling we're going to have a good day. I am determined to have a good day despite not having a good day. I have children, I have buttons. Children pressed all the buttons this morning. It happens. We're going to move past it. Life's great, as it turns out, when you take a few minutes to be like, what are some things that are going well in life? And there's a lot. So we're going to move past an annoying morning. I have a cup of tea. We're about to start working on chapter 20. So things are going really well. This chapter is the first chapter where I had started doing a lot more in-depth work on these chapters, and I think this is where it's going to start getting a little easier. So let's see if I'm right. Whenever I finish working on 2 chapters, my reward is I'm going to spend like 15 to 20 minutes working on that graphic I talked about yesterday. I started making it last night. I'm really liking the way it's coming out. I've got all my pictures for each of my characters. It's super fun. All right, here we go. Let's go. I'm feeling tired, not literally, but just my brain. So I think what I want to do is do one more time block, try to finish chapter 23, and then make some coffee and just go to the local state forest and just be outside and see if I can write the other 2 chapters that I want to finish today before going to wait for kids at the drop-off line. And then while I'm waiting in the drop-off line, I can just read my book. Agatha Christie, The Clocks. I'm really, really enjoying this book. I've never read a lot of mystery books, and this is my first Agatha Christie, and I'm admiring so much her like masterful use of dialogue. There's so little in the way of dialogue tags. It's kind of just like there's a lot of exchanges between characters, and the small amount of tags that there are do so much work. But I'm just so impressed by how well she showcases characteristics, personality, information, all through just the dialogue exchanges. It's really nice, especially coming from reading a lot of romance, where romance is always going to be my favorite thing ever. But how would I describe it? Romance has so much interiority, and it's not that that's bad, but I'm just really enjoying the different flavor of a writer who just expects you to understand what's going on without needing to explain things too in depth. I really like how the chapters I've been working on are coming together. While it's so funny because it's the plot events and the scenes themselves aren't necessarily changing, but there's a lot of interiority and tone that is changing because I'm just tightening things up and realizing a different sort of direction that needs to be happening at this point in the interiority. So, for instance, like this is the beginning of the second quarter, and initially I'd been thinking that at this point the love interest would be sort of in this more playful mood and a certain place in his interiority, and that's just like not the case, and it works much better for him to be really doubling down on his lie that he believes about Faye and the way that they are. And I could just feel how much stronger that is and how much more satisfying of a flip it's going to be as he keeps getting these holes shot into his lie of how things are. I'm really enjoying what I had talked about earlier in this vlog about focusing on what is the question that this chapter is asking and what is the answer that it's providing, as well as what is the value shift at the beginning of the chapter to the end of the chapter. And I kind of made a little list. So at this point, I've done 22 chapters, thinking of it in those terms. And while this is a new thing for me, I can tell that it's helpful and good. So I made a list of the most common value shifts that seem to be coming up that I think are specific just to this story in particular. There's a lot of characters going from a strategic way of thinking to a tactical way of thinking and vice versa. So having their larger strategic plan of what they're trying to be doing, and then the course of the argument, whatever, getting lost from that and wrapped up in the tactics of like winning this argument at the expense of their larger goal, and vice versa, as well as a shift from pride to shame, from control to out of control, and from peace to despair and resolve to temptation. So those seem to be the ones that keep coming up as value shifts within the scenes, which is fun. So, okay, I've walked for 1 mile today so far. I'm going to go do that other mile of walking and see if we can finish chapter 23. And it's a beautiful fall day out there, so I'm excited to go to the state forest after that. It's October 18th. My kids are going crazy downstairs, but I just wanted to catch you up. I spent a time block, maybe 1.5 time blocks this morning, finishing up the last chapter I'd been working on yesterday and doing my sequence 3 analysis. I did end up going to the state forest yesterday, and I worked on a couple chapters while I was there. It was so beautiful. The end of this third sequence, there was a couple there were the first chapters where I actually needed to take out an entire chapter as well as change the point of view for another chapter. So that got a little confusing, but I'm feeling really good about it. I really like the pacing of it. I think that's really great. That's something that I've struggled with a lot. And definitely the number one thing that helped me was using the 8 sequence method. It's just such a good tool. It's such a good tool. I'm really pleased with how the week went, working on 27 chapters in 4 days. That feels great. I obviously didn't actually fix literally the chapters, but I feel like I got a lot closer to what I'm going to be doing, and I asked a lot of good questions for things I'll need to focus on when I do actually do them. So yeah, feels really good. But it's the weekend, so I'm gonna cool it with writing stuff now and focus on what to do with the kids. There's a bunch of fall activity craft stuff that I think they would enjoy doing. So we're gonna see what sounds cool to them and enjoy the weekend. I hope writing's going well for you. I hope that the fall is going well, and I'll see you in the next one.